Hello, name's Anand, welcome back to my channel. I got a little bit of a preface today before getting into the video, just so you know what's going on. My mood is quite dampened. Something just happened that left quite a hit on me. I was in belief that I had just recorded one of the greatest, most fun, most entertaining runs that I've played for, quite frankly, for a very long time. And I just completely fell in love with this build over the course of that run. However, I discovered that, well, my recording software hadn't been recording the entire time. And I'm assuming that is because I must have hit the keyboard shortcut in order to start a recording or stop a recording too fast. And it didn't get picked up. However, the build is just such fun, and it's not very original. Like, plenty of people have tried this before, but it's such fun that even though I don't like the playstyle particularly, and I don't particularly love the build idea, I fell in love with it. And I feel like that's definitely a build worthy of being presented to the people. I feel like people need to try this, people need to see this, people that don't know it yet need to see it specifically, right? And that's why shortly thereafter, I am now here recording this again, trying to have a good time, trying to have an experience that at least somewhat resembles what I just experienced. But whatever run we'll be getting into today, just know that it cannot hold up, it can't compare to what I just experienced, and that I feel quite frustrated about what just happened to me. So there's that, I guess. Let's get into it. Today's build is a janky build that I nonetheless consider extremely fun and very viable for both boss rush as well as Chaos Trials. This is a very high damage per second build, so naturally it finds a great place in boss rush. Let's get right into it. Today's build is called Orbital Doom, and the build idea here is quite obvious, that we will be running any and everything and using and abusing any and everything that leaves behind things orbiting our character, quite frankly. So anything orbiting our character is good to go. We want to turn into a spinning top of doom, essentially a Beyblade or a, what are they called again? A fidget spinner, right? Whatever you grew up with, a fidget spinner of death. Let's get right into it. Now, there are obviously two approaches to this build, one of which being boss rush, the other one being Chaos Trials. In boss rush, you would play a lot more aggressively and focus a lot more heavily on damage. You would go for a different rope, a different dash, and certainly a different starting item, probably a different signature as well. However, we'll be going for the sloppy Chaos Trials approach, allowing for a lot of wiggle room, making a lot of mistakes. So naturally, I'm running Grit Rope here. It's a true melee build. We have to get up close and personal to enemies all the time in order to apply our damage, meaning that we will take some BS damage sometimes, specifically against or from summoners and mages, because when you are right up their face and they charge up an attack, you won't even see it coming. You will be hit essentially when the attack is indicated, right? So that will happen sometimes, as well as Lancers, because true melee loses against Lancers. Lancers just have so much range, and if you're not perfectly hitting them, and you're kind of off just a little bit, they might just hit you instead, or combo you instead, and that's quite annoying. And then Thieves are also kind of annoying, so there's a lot of things that make you take damage very quickly and rather frequently. It's not just a handful of abilities in the game, though, it's quite a lot, in fact. Pretty much every Lancer can do it, for example. And then there's a lot of AoEs in the game, and like the Earthen Knight Shield and ice blocks and stuff. So yeah, super annoying stuff for a true melee player. That's why we're running Grit, giving us a lot more wiggle room on making mistakes by increasing our armor slightly, aka reducing the damage we take, and increasing our healing received slightly, aka, well, increasing a healing received specifically from healing orbs. We are not opting to heal off of healing pots. In that case, we would be running Spirit Rope. Now, for boss rush or any major damage focused version of this build, I would definitely advocate you try Venture Rope. It's the best damage increase in the game. Yeah, surely it reduces your max health by 200, and you have to be on edge constantly when running something like Double Trouble to not just die in 2 or 3 hits. However, it's so much fun. It is so good. The cooldown reduction is ridiculous compared compared to grid, just the raw grid effects, which are rather minor. The cooldown reduction specifically is awesome, and then a damage increase on top is fantastic. I can only recommend you try this. However, today, sloppy approach. Let's continue. For our starting relic, we will naturally be running with the first thing that comes to mind when in Wizard of Legend, considering a build made around orbitals. The king of orbitals, really. Or the queen? I don't know. Cobalt Firestone, which you can find in the offense category on the final page, next to all the other stones. Now, Cobalt Firestone leaves these fiery comets or fireballs spinning around you continuously. Unlike all the other stones in the game, it doesn't apply its status effect, so there's no burn applied. It just deals a small amount of damage, but it deals it all the time. Enemies don't have to remain in the area for a short period of time and then it randomly strikes them. No, this just hits all of them right away, all the time. Lovely, and it looks very nice. It looks quite menacingly. Now you have a lot of different choices here for items. I don't know if I want to get into that. Honestly, there are so many choices. I could be talking about this for hours on end. Such as, you could go for signature with something like Wondrous Mechanism. You could go for crit chance. You could go for something like Fiery Paintbrush, the Explodiums, Special Snowflake, or Whimsical. You could go for a basic themed build. You could go for defense. All of the chainmails pretty much work because armor is gonna be helpful when you're running through melee. You could go for movement speed. You could go for utility in evasion, for example, or for something that I consider quite fun, which would be something like, yeah, on hit you apply status effect to enemies. Like, that also works quite well. There are so many different picks, but just naming a few other ones that are very relevant to you in case you're trying a different approach. Spice Rack is probably the best pick playing this build. I had that in my run and my god, it is orgasmic how good this item synergizes with this build. Cooldown reduction, as long as you use Arcana of different elements in a short period of time, one after another. It's so strong. You're using 4 different elements in this case, so very applicable, very, very good. Extremely high DPS increase overall. You could also run Mystic Monopole to pretty much reduce enemy knockback, not enemy knockback, knockback on enemies to about, what, 10% or something? Very good. You could go for some projectile destruction. There's a lot of things you can do. Right, let's just get into Arcana because this could go on forever. So, for the choice of Arcana, naturally, for our basic, we will be going for Air Spinner, as the name suggests. Duh. This leaves airy discs spinning around your body. About the same size as your Cobalt Firestone, which again is going to be true for all the abilities we're going to be using here today. It's all melee, so about the size of a Cobalt Firestone. Now these discs pierce enemies, and they are very neat for destroying objectives, like so, because the disc will spin around you completely, and it won't disappear until it has done that. Meaning that you have a lot of room to start it here, and then dash over here and destroy more obstacles, for example, or hit more enemies. They also destroy projectiles, and the damage is quite great, especially once you get the upgrade, which will spin 2 discs around you at any given time, effectively doubling your damage. Now for a dash, we will be going for a very solid dash, in my opinion, which is Ignition Rush. Essentially lighting you ablaze, damaging / burning enemies around you that you walk into and knocking them back slightly, which is very helpful in a melee build. It's just a little bit more damage. It's essentially a second Cobalt Firestone. Now you have a lot of different dash options, right? I can't tell right now. A lot of different dash options, such as Magma Rush, that also works. It's slightly less on the spinning top kind of theme here, but it still kind of works. You could go for Entangling Vines, which I'll be getting to in a minute here. You could go for Volt Tracer, which definitely works visually and thematically with your build, in my opinion anyway. You could go Wavefront if you want slightly more range and knockback / utility. You could go Frostwing, which definitely doesn't suit the build all that well, but it will essentially attack all enemies close to you or around you. So it is definitely applicable to a melee build, and I quite like it for that. It has quite a great damage output for a dash. Or you could go Chaotic Rift, for example, if you're running this in Boss Rush and you don't want a dash that you have to upgrade, and you want to be able to dodge enemy attacks, mostly bosses, very, very quickly and efficiently, or dash through walls. Like, this was my first pick, but I definitely would change that to Ignition Rush today. I just personally favor it. It feels very good. It's a very, very feel-good dash, especially once you get the upgrade when it explodes after this duration and lights enemies ablaze again. Okay, let's get into our standard. This is gonna be Cardice Prime. Carbon Dioxide Ice Prime, I believe. I don't know what Cardice actually means. I had to look that up, and people don't seem to actually generally know. So this leaves these icicles spinning around you, not necessarily orbiting you, but spinning around you, which will essentially stun lock and deal a slight bit of damage to enemies. Now amplify this with something such as a glass cannon, and all of a sudden this Arcana becomes a force to be reckoned with. And once you upgrade it, on top of all that, these icicles will shoot out in all directions around you. Since this is already pretty much omnidirectional Arcana, it looks very cool. You become essentially a snowflake for a few seconds, and then you just spam an entire room with your icicles. It's very, very cool. I absolutely love it. Now, in contrast to this, you could also make a point for Snowflake Chakrams, for example, the unenhanced version of which looks like so. Now, you notice that the radius of it increases over time, which is one major downfall to this Arcana, in my opinion. Once you get it upgraded, or is it just on the signature? No, it's once you get it enhanced, this radius will grow and shrink continuously, meaning that they will essentially wobble back and forth, which I also don't really like. If you are going completely for radius, like orbit-themed Arcana, this is definitely not the way to go, in my opinion. Now, you could run this as your signature, for example, but we are not going to be doing that, because I personally do not really like it. Instead, for a signature, we will be running Vault Pinball. A bit of another odd pick, about the same range here as all the other abilities, as you can tell. Now, this is the reason I'm talking so much about knockback and reducing knockback on enemies, and using this in Boss Rush, where bosses don't really have a lot of knockback, because bosses don't really receive a lot of knockback generally. This has a massive knockback. As soon as you strike an enemy, it will fly across the room. What's the word? Bouncing between enemies, right? Bouncing between enemies, damaging them and knocking them back. In the last run, I have destroyed an entire room of like 5 enemies just doing this. And it knocked all of them into a pit right away. It's just one projectile killed all of them right away. It's ridiculous how strong this knockback is, and it works very much against the build. Then why are we using it, you might argue? Well, it leaves us a little bit of wiggle room. It flies across the room, giving us a lot more range effectively. It works well into bosses where it won't bounce them around the place, because again, they don't receive much knockback. And it looks quite cool, honestly. And then the signature, which I haven't really seen too much, even last run, is the same thing, just in a larger radius with a lot more projectiles. Against the boss, this quickly ramps up in terms of damage, and once you receive something like Mystic Monopole specifically, this will ramp up damage very fast. Now, there's a lot of things you could say about this build. Let's start with cooldowns. Just look at these cooldowns. These are rather short, all of them. Now, you combine these with a Spice rank, for example, and this build is just redonkulous. So you pop essentially everything, and you run into your foes, and you just burst them down. There's a lot of different appliances to this build. For example, if you are locked in a small room, and there's a lot of enemies coming in waves, you just use one of these at a time, and that's good enough. Now, if you're in a bit of a larger room, you can go ahead and blow these all at those elemental enemies that are quite a threat to you, and then you come back and you finish them off with your Cobalt Firestone and your Air Spinner later. There's a lot of different ways you can play this. Let's not get into that just now. let's first discuss why you should probably use a different dash. Now, specifically, Entangling Vines, it clumps enemies up. Now, this in and of itself is good enough to use in this build. However, when you upgrade them, for example using the Grease Boots or the Mirror, the Idealist's Mirror as your starting item, this will root enemies in place and poison them. Rooted enemies cannot be moved in any way, shape or form. That means that popping this, they will eat all of the damages from your signature, which is fantastic. However, the root doesn't last very long. However, specifically the Greased Boots also massively reduce the cooldown of your dash, meaning that this becomes a simple combo in and of itself. A very good combo, in my opinion. However, I'm gonna be sticking with the idea of mostly running into enemies and mostly trying to just deal as much damage as possible using Cobalt Firestone, because to me, that is the key part to this build. I think that about sums it up. There are not too many combos here we have to explain. You will see all for yourself. It's quite a simple build to play. Let's get into the intended build playstyle. The intended build playstyle for this build is similar to what I pretty much showed off or alleged to already. You want to be as aggressively as possible, but be smart about it. So when you're running into a lot of summoners, for example, you can't just run in there and go for one of them, because then the other ones will hit you. You have to set priorities. What targets are dangerous, what targets you have to dodge, and be wary about those targets. Now you want to take out targets like thieves, for example, which you can passively do. Thieves will try to teleport into or behind you, meaning that once you pop Cardice, and then you just hit them with this, for example, over a long range shock bounce, or whatever the fuck you call these, they will try to teleport into you and get stunned immediately by the Cardice and then finished off by your basics passively, because all of your abilities pierce as many enemies as you'd like. You can kill 30 different enemies all at once, as long as they are around you and in range. And that is going to be your primary goal. Hitting as many enemies with your abilities as possible, gaining as much value out of these abilities as humanly possible. You want to group them up, and you want to strike whenever necessary, whenever applicable. That's a lot of words. Honestly, let's just move on, because you'll see what I mean as we play the game, right? Potential problems of this build, not so many, one of which is obviously range, and then slightly, you need a little bit of cooldown reduction, but range is obviously your main problem, your main issue. That's what we got this for, to at least slightly combat that and to be able to hit across a room. Now, I think that about concludes the problems. I can't really think of anything else per se right now. Projectiles are obviously an issue, so you want to have items and maybe Arcana that diminish the danger of projectiles towards you, meaning that something like a shield that deflects projectiles or that completely destroys them and then consumes the shield, those are very helpful. Arcana such as Permafrost Bulwark are very helpful, which, you know, you pop these, you pop a Permafrost, and they keep spinning around you and damaging enemies, and they just get obliterated. Relics such as, again, Spice Rack are insanely helpful. Double Trouble, all damage increases are very welcome, very helpful. Cobalt deals a decent chunk of damage. It deals 5 damage base level, and it can crit for 7 damage, meaning that you can ramp up that damage very quickly as well. Jumps are very helpful, giving you more iframes. Iframes means that enemies walking through you while you're jumping will also take damage from all your spinning things. More spinning things are always welcome, like the chakrams, for example. Tearing Whirlwind, for example, is very helpful, so things that make you go faster and swipe through enemies or swipe rooms very easily. Things that give you more area control. Wards are very cool. There are a lot of things in this game that are very, very helpful to this build. Specifically, you also want to have your upgrades right away. All of them are fantastic. This doubles your damage. Cardice is just a lot more clear. It's a lot more range. It's almost like this, becoming kind of the main focus of the build at that point, visually at least. And your dash is just a lot more damage too. So yeah, I wouldn't say you have any particular goal in mind here. Like, if I had to oppose, say you find all the items you could ever want, and then all the Arcana upgrades you could ever want in the same on the same floor, and you only have a limited amount of gold, I would almost always favor getting the Arcana first. Specifically, I know I'm overusing the fuck out of that word right now, but hear me out. You want to have your basic first. Theoretically, because it's the most damage, and you use this a lot. It is very important to use this a lot, and you will find appliance for things like candies or other basic attack enhancers, because quite frankly, it's just your main weapon in this build, and then the rest of them are just supportive, but they look very flashy, unlike your basic. But your basic is the absolute core of this build, the absolute core damage tool, and the one you have to fall back to in case everything else fails. Now, Cardice is the greatest looking upgrade, but don't let that dissuade you, it's not that strong. However, generally, you might see me get Cardice right away because it just looks cool and it feels cool. But you should absolutely be getting Aspinner, then Cardice, then Ignition Rush. With that out of the way, I think that about concludes it all. Now, there's a lot more things I could talk about. Specifically, my god, I'm overusing the fuck out of the word just so much today. Specifically, cursed items and what kind of build you could go for. I prefer going for signature or raw damage, but you could also go defense or utility. Sprites and other stones, for example, work very nicely. But let's just get into it, okay? Let's have some fucking fun. Boss-wise, we don't really give a shit about who we have to fight. We are fine with all of them. This build also, due to the grid rope instead of venture, allows us to face tank enemies like Shu a lot more. Meaning damaging the boss while standing inside of them while they are attacking you. Just becomes a lot more convenient. Now you can already notice the sloppy playstyle creeping up here. I've already taken plenty of damage on the first room, in fact. Definitely taking the tattered scroll here because I highly value the signature charge generated from it. And it allows combos like, well, combining it with other signature charge related items or with flippers, for example, to take a lot less damage. I'm always excited to play this build. Try to play around our cooldowns here, abuse them as much as possible. We have quite the range, quite the stun lock on our enemies. Try to make the thief here the main focus of our attack, of our ambush. Okay, we get Mirror Shield again. This is absolutely one of those items you have to take every time, as long as you can. Bladed Buckler is also very, very nice. I love it. But Mirror Shield is an absolute must-have. It's essentially a second Ignition Rush shield on top of you, blocking a projectile for you, allowing you to play a lot more sloppy, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. Now, I also like Heroic Leap here, but we won't take it because, quite frankly, we don't really need any additional Arcana. We can play True Melee for as long as the guards don't throw us any Divine Arcana. You know Storybook? Okay. It's not so helpful. Now, Mirror Shield. Is it called Mirror Shield? I believe so. It allows us to specifically... My god, I have to stop using that word so much. I'm just annoying myself at this point. It allows us genuinely... Wow, there you go. Generally. I don't even know, man. What other words do I use instead of specifically? I like specifically, though. It's so specific. It allows us to tank, especially archers, quite easily, because they tend to fire rather slowly. And then in those rooms with a lot of archers, you can focus on one of them, completely ignoring the other, and they fire only once at you, they consume your shield, and meanwhile you've already killed one of the archers, and afterwards you can just fully focus on the other one. You don't have to do some fancy dodges while also attacking. You can just completely ignore that. No, you don't fire nothing. Now against mages, it's okay, but because they fire multiple projectiles, it's not too helpful. I used it just now. One advantage of going to melee is that we can just stand in an enemy like this one and completely obliterate them, because anything they spawn nearby will be targeted and killed right away with a vengeance. I think we got about it all. Let's just move on. At least we get Mirror Shield back. That makes me happy, alright? But we got so many good items in the last run, and like 3 unique things that I've never seen before happen. An enemy got stuck in a wall, one of the slimes, completely alone. Like in a corner, he got himself stuck in a corner without me ever really being there. I found the same Arcana twice on the same floor without actually having like a presence or something drop me that Arcana. In fact, it was Storm Entourage. So I had found Storm Entourage on an earlier stage, like 2 stages earlier, and then I found it again in my shop, which is something that I've never experienced in that way, shape or form. So usually when that happens, there's a present nearby, dropping you a duplicate. But in this case, no clue what happened. And then, yeah, obviously there was that legendary bouncing surge, I'm gonna call it, because I don't know how else to call these. Protective ring of charged orbs. That bouncing charged orb, taking out 4 enemies. Just one orb. I barely entered the room and it had already pretty much full cleared the room. That shit was so funny. I just broke down right then and there. Now, one small disadvantage of the Mirror Shield is that it's quite large. It will proc a lot, even when your character wouldn't have necessarily been hit. See, the bouncing ball already ricocheted all over here and took out the Lancer without me ever really participating in that killing. I love that so much. It's very entertaining. Want to play around our cooldowns as much as possible. Keep in mind that we can face tank a projectile, but we can't really tank something like a knight, because melee obviously doesn't get protected by the Mirror Shield. Look at that bouncing power. I love this Arcana. It might seem so useless damage-wise, but trust me, it is such fun. It is not useless at all. Fun. The thing here is, with recording twice, is my voice is kind of fucked. I'm slightly gasping for air right now. My voice is quite rough and doesn't feel all that great. But I need to get this out. This is just so fun to me. It's so fun to me that I'm voluntarily torturing myself here. Well, I wouldn't say torture, but you get what I'm saying. My voice hurts and I'm still doing this. I would consider that slight torture, maybe. Maybe not. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration. Let's get rid of Unas. Usually you should wait. Maybe you find yourself a Glove of Midas and then you get more money from that, but again, we are playing the sloppy run here. We don't have to optimize everything we do. Cooldown reduction, I like that. I love the Permafrost Cube on builds like this that hit many times. However, one major disadvantage of this that you might not even be aware of is those big, chunky black guys, when you freeze them and then unfreeze them, they will immediately attack. They won't even be granting you a split second to react to them and dodge them. You will pretty much be guaranteed to be hit as soon as you unfreeze them. And this is a build that if I freeze them, I'm up close, so they will hit me if I unfreeze them right away. And if my Cobalt Firestone unfreezes them right away. Especially while I'm using something like this, where I can barely move, and I can't really cancel this fast enough. So this is a detrimental pickup, one that I like seeing, that is quite fun, but that you have to use wisely, and that it can become quite dangerous to you. So I don't think we will be running it. We don't have that much gold anyway. Combo gloves, no, we don't really need any of that. Did I forget selling something? I mean, we can definitely I don't know, man. This counts as a projectile. That I find that so weird. So I would have not expected that, actually. I've never paid attention to that, even though it's my favorite basic in the game. So actually we will keep the Gloves of Gambit and just continue here. Moving on. Now I'm hoping to find Noxia ASAP. To preferably find maybe a glass cannon, maybe double trouble. I would definitely want a reliable source of damage. Luxury handbag would be acceptable as well, even though we can't really use that. Now, try to stay close in case I get hit, so I have a quite short way up to him, because wind slows, and that's super annoying. I'm amazed that that did actually dodge it. I meant to dash to the bottom left diagonally. I don't know if I actually did do that. Flame Breath, that's cool. It's not too applicable, but it's certainly melee range. Personally, I don't really like using additional Arcana on this build. Last time I played it, I got fucking amazing Arcana. One of which being Pyromancy, aka the fire enhancement that lets you basic super quickly, which is absolutely one of the best combos in the game, combining it with Espionage. I was about to say specifically again. I'm gonna punch myself in the balls doing that. Yeah, just face tag those archers. We don't care much. Mirror Shield is awesome. It's worth every penny. I believe that actually my what the fuck just happened there? I believe my Flame Breath, my Fire Breath just destroyed the shuriken there. I'm not sure whether it can actually destroy projectiles though. Let's head over here first. Okay, basic upgrade and a little bit of crit chance, and oh my god! Yes! Thank you so much! Thank you so much! Please! Please don't fuck up the record. In fact, I'm kind of paranoid right now. Let me just check real quick whether it's actually running. Yes, it is. Okay, boys, we got it. Let's have a good time here. We got fucking Spice Rack, my favorite item in the game. Probably, I might have contradicted myself here multiple times, but today at least, Spice Rack is my favorite item in the game, and my god, this item is awesome. Okay, bringing that mood back up. Slowly but surely. Hello. How you doing, guys? How you doing, guys? You always want to cast Cardice Prime first if you have the opportunity to, because it is pretty much instant speed stun lock. Whereas these spheres, they take a while, I feel. They don't really stun lock as heavily right away, anyway. Now, without the air spin upgrade, chances of you actually destroying a projectile you want to destroy, when you want to destroy it, are quite low. You definitely need the upgrade, and then preferably some additional effects, like increased attack speed, for example, for that to happen. Love the bouncing back and forth. It's quite entertaining to watch. And we get the upgrade right away. Fantastic. Now, I don't really intend to get the Claws of Tomo because crit chance... I mean, we might. We might. If we have excess money, we will definitely get it because it's a good damage up. But for now, we can't really be bothered too much. As with all true melee builds, these big black guys are quite the challenge. Especially when you cannot physically sync their attacks, so they will attack desynchronized. Meaning that they are just a lot harder to dodge because you have to manage a lot of them at one given time. You always want to try to group them up and sync their attacks so you can hit all of them at once and dodge all of them at once, which obviously makes fighting them very trivial. Right, Claws of Tomo, Fiery Paintbrush, I love both of these, quite frankly. I really like Destructive Arrow because we can't go jumper cables because none of these count as movement Arcana, unfortunately. I like Claws of Tomo. I'll get it. I'll grab it. I'm not sure whether or not I want to grab the Fiery Paintbrush. Main issue is that it's just not too helpful. We don't typically deal a lot of damage in one hit. As you can tell, it's like in the 5 to 20 range for the most part. But I mean, I kind of gotta get it because imagine getting like wooden easel and all the other items. That'd be fantastic. Right, moving on. I love the painting items generally. All of them are fantastic. My favorite is probably the lightning one and watercolor palette. Though you see me picking up wooden easel pretty much every time I see it because it's just so reliable. It's so stupid how strong that item is. So I'd say that is probably the best item out of all of them by a landslide. Not even close. Double Trouble, hello. Absolutely, thank you. Okay, this run is already looking very, very good. Yeah, your fire shield ain't doing nothing for you, buddy. Now, Double Trouble is pretty much a must-have item on this build because your damage is already fantastic, and when you double it, you start completely obliterating everything that's in the game, as long as you can get close up to it. So summoners can still kill you quite quickly, but at least they don't hit many times. So it's unlikely that you'll die right away to a summoner. Unlike, say, a Lancer or a Knight or a Thief, which can just combo off of themselves. Summoners usually require a bit of time to kill you. Going for the Archer there because the Thief's basically not an issue. If the Thief targets me while fighting the Archer, he will just be stun locked as well. Love that upgrade, thank you very much. Now, luxurious handbag would be great pickup. There's another part of the painting crew and of the stones. I would love both of them, thank you very much. Now, I will gladly take more signature charge generation and stun lock duration as well. Oh my god, count me the fuck in. Do those AoEs actually count as projectiles? I don't know, I would have to check that out. Should try being hit by an oven sometime soon. That's totally not a weird sentence to say. Yeah, nice try, just lobbing that over my head like an absolute doofus. Can't even aim for shit, dude. Gotta try harder, man. Alright. Now, I would definitely prioritize electrifying smoke, but we're going for the stone because you can see it. Oh, that's a stupid reason, but visual appeal in this game is so cool. Look, just look at me. I look like a living fucking sun. The visual appeal is a 10 out of 10. Now, we don't really intend to use that anytime soon. But we're definitely going to trade it away now that everything's upgraded. Glacial Cross is quite fun. Oh, not enough. Not quite, anyway. Now, we are broke as fuck, whereas in the last run, I literally made it up to 982 coins at Sura. And then I spent it on, like, 4 stones. Let's try the damage boost. Ah! Cool. Now, face tanking, as already previously defined, means that we can just stand inside of the boss, tank their tanks. That's the advantage of having a grip rope. A grit rope, my god, I can't talk. A grit rope over a venture rope. Meaning that 500 HP, yeah, they're not going to burn through that, even when you have double trouble all that fast. Meaning you can just tank it while killing the boss very fast. Or, you know, you could be patient and boring and kill the boss slowly and not take any damage, but we're not doing that here. Can't believe that hit me. Now, barrels are a bit of an issue for you. Man, I look so fucking cool. I look so fucking cool. I love this. This is definitely a 10 on the style. Ugh, I can't. I shouldn't even try this out. This is definitely a 10 on my style scale. Jesus, talking is difficult. I highly encourage you to try it out yourself. Talking can be quite beneficial, but it is quite difficult. It is scientifically proven to be quite difficult of an activity. Not many people can do it. Many people are afraid to do it. It's not for everyone. Ah, you don't do that. We don't do that here. No multiple shots. Everyone only gets one. Don't care about the poison, honestly. Care more about that earthen shield, but we can dodge it very easily. Oh my, I love what I'm seeing. Let's get behind the bag. The handbag. I shouldn't be talking so much. I should be focusing more on playing. I'm killing my voice and my brain at the same time. It's ridiculous. Why am I doing this? Alright, because it's fun. Try again. Shoot me again. You can't even aim for shit, my friend. The mind games are so weak on you, dude. It's like, have you ever played a shooter in your life? Coming at me with a bow and arrow? Like, that's cocky. That's really cocky, and you can't even aim for shit, dude? Calming Flow is definitely a very, very nice pick. That's a lot of cooldown reduction. But I'm gonna resist the urge of taking that, because I don't want to rely on using other Arcana to virtually reduce all my cooldowns to 0 seconds. No. We're not doing that here. Let's just go full Beyblade mode. Not so much spam everything and hope that things die mode. Nah, we go on Beyblade mode. Now, while Cobalt Firestone works off of its AoE on enemies, on obstacles you actually have to hit the obstacles with the radius of the comets. So you can't just walk through obstacles and like the radius of your ability will break them. No. You have to hit them. You can't talk. I'm just gonna shut up from now, right? I'm just gonna shut up and have some fun. I would love these two though. Airy Cloak specifically obviously allows me to face tank a lot more, and the Merchant's card, it's just good. It's really nice. Let's get the cloak. Oh. Next! Well, we don't have enough money. That's a-okay. Let's move on. I don't know what it is. Well, I have a slight suspicion that it's probably because I'm recording like 3 videos back to back, and then talking eventually becomes quite difficult of a task to perform. I mean, talking while playing is already hard enough as is. When you combine that with effort and trying to be somewhat entertaining and knowledgeable, things get out of hand quite quickly. Now how? Okay, I take quite a lot of pride in being able to pump explosive barrels while playing Air Spinner, as that is not very easy to do consistently. At least from my experience playing with a controller. Ah, another stone. I love to see it. And it's frost stone too, so you know what that means. That's gonna be quite harmful to us, but we are already on the final floor, so don't really care about those big black guys any longer. We won't have to see any more of them except for that one before Sura. Would be quite ironic if he ended up fucking us up, dealing 150 plus damage to us. They are totally not known for doing that. Like, you just fuck up once against them, you take 150 damage. I've seen more mimics in this game today than I've seen the past 3 months. Now this is the type of wave-based run that you have to use your abilities delicately. Usually. Now, we got Spice Rank, and we do not give the slightest bit of a shit about delicacies. Is it delicacies or delicateness? Who knows? Berserker Cell. Now we're looking fresh and cool. Now, delicacies are the food, right? Is it delicateness? Us being delicate? I would assume so. I would assume that delicateness is the behavioral substantive. What they call substantive? Dude, no, I'm so retarded. It's like, it's not even funny anymore. I'm just brain dead at this point, but that's okay. That's okay. You know that school really is just a big playground. Once you become an adult, you just forget the majority of things you've ever known, and you kind of become just a retard. Like that's just kind of how that's just kind of what it's like growing up. I feel you forget so many relevant things to learn things about your job for the most part. You forget how to do maths. You forget how to do geographics. You forget politics, maybe religion, like whatever values you learn as a kid. Morale, right? That's a big one, probably. Or just simple, basic phrases and words. Like, I can't even talk in my native language. What about you? What did you forget? I'm having serious trouble talking in my native language, which I talk on a daily basis. So, yikes, bro. Is this what it feels like growing up? Getting Alzheimer's? Probably. Oh, what the fuck was that, bro? Holy. Ah, you're not doing that to me again. I mean, I let you do it last time, and this time... No, none of that kinky shit. I know I said I'd shut the fuck up, but... then this wouldn't be too entertaining, would it? Just 40-minute Resident Evil Legend gameplay, uncommented, have fun. Let's get the stone and fuck off. And just obliterate everything. Fantastic. Now, hot take on this, I love this item. It looks awesome. It is so underrated. Because to an experienced player, this means nothing. It's 150 wasted gold. But I've seen my girlfriend play with this, and she loved it. Obviously, she's new to the game. But man, I loved it too. I loved looking at this. The animation on this is fantastic. And the use cases of it, also fantastic. Absolutely 10 out of 10. Love that Arcana. Sorry, that relic. I love that relic. I would make a build around it, but I don't think you really can. Maybe a wind build where you drag enemies into pits that you're standing on. I don't know, man, but when rooms close off and you lose access to the pits, that obviously ceases working. So probably not the best choice of a build. Bro, come on. Thank you. I meant to commit there fully, but then he did the one attack and pushed me away. Kinda annoying. Let's get this for the luxury hand back. We don't care much about using that ward, I think. I mean, it does amplify our lightning damage. No, our wind damage, actually. I'm stupid. I always forget what the enhancement does. But yeah, wait. What is increasing? It does increase the air damage, yeah. So we don't care much. Oh, I love that slow. Do we have Windstone? Yes, we do. There's a reason Shira is so fucking obnoxious, because slow is by far probably the least impactful, yet the most annoying status effect in this game. Yeah, I love when the doors want to unlock and the zone is already played, but the enemies are still alive. That kind of makes sense. Kind of a Wizard of Legend moment. The reason that I can talk so much, by the way, is that this build is so brain-dead simple to play. It's quite a blast, honestly. That was the whole point of assembling it like so. Now we could get this and go super risky. I believe Stygian and Area Cloak do not actually stack. I am pretty sure, actually. Oh, we could get it anyway, or we could get Berserkers. I think that makes a lot more sense. And then maybe get the Berserker's Helm as well. Fetch it back. Can we try something here? I mean, I don't really want to get rid of anything though. Nah. I ain't gonna. Oh, full HP. Advantages of Grit Robe. Let's go. Let's fucking go, boy. Let's have a good time. This run ended up being quite fun. I don't care how it's gonna end. It's definitely a good time. Not a great time, but I had a good time. Just face tank. He can't do shit to us, bro. It's just like last time. I fucking destroy the guy, and I could face tank while evading and healing myself back up at the same time. It's just... This is true melee. This is the might of true melee, and this is why I fucking love this. This is why I love this. You get Kasim's Airy Cloak or Stygian. You stand inside of your enemies. You face tank everything with the Grit Robe and other armor items that you might have found, and then you damage the fuck out of them, probably healing yourself back up in the process, or even like being a savage and not giving the slightest bit of a shit about your health, because you know that the enemy is just gonna cease existing in a few seconds from now, and that your health doesn't really matter anyway. GG, that was fantastic, very fun. Again, very short-lived experience. I would very much love playing this in boss rush instead, where the fight would be a lot more intense and a lot longer. That was fun. I would not necessarily say that this build is beginner friendly. I would say it's easy to play. I wouldn't say it's easy to learn at all. I would say melee is only for experienced folks, but you could definitely give it a try. I strongly recommend you do. I'm glad I got this kind of... I wouldn't say compensation necessarily, but the relief of, yeah, I got to see the same items as last run for the most part. I got to see Double Trouble, I got Airy Cloak, I got Berserker's Axe, and then Spice Rack, and so many stones and painting parts, and so many items I love to see in a run, and it was just a blast. Granted, I didn't have as much damage as last time, but I got something like Mirror Shield, which I adore on this build. Or Spice Rack, or Berserkers. It's just, man, I am very thankful, I'm very grateful. And I'm glad it's finally over at the same time, that I actually got this recording down to a T. Thank you so much for watching. I know you're not really related to my issues here, but thank you so much for sticking with me through this. Good morning, good day, good night, wherever you are. Someone just came in, I get kind of scared. And thanks for watching. Until next time, goodbye.